arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dutiyampi sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Tatiyampi sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. To observe the 5 precepts, repeat after me. I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from killing beings.
abstaining from killing beings.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from stealing.
abstaining from stealing.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from sexual misconduct.
abstaining from sexual misconduct.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from telling lies.
abstaining from telling lies.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from taking
abstaining from taking
intoxicating drinks and drugs
intoxicating drinks and drugs
with the refuge of the noble triple gem.
with the refuge of the noble triple gem.
I follow these precepts
I follow these precepts
for happiness in this life,
for happiness in this life,
for rebirth in heaven,
for rebirth in heaven,
to escape from the sufferings of samsara.
to escape from the sufferings of samsara.
May it help me and be a blessing.
May it help me and be a blessing.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today, everyone, we're going to be learning. Last week we finished 𝗪 𝗪 which was reflection on repulsiveness. And we talked about the 32 parts that are found in this body. And we discussed how we memorize those. And then we reminded everyone that it's a good idea to have those 32 parts memorized, because it's going to help us in this next meditation, which is dhatu manasikare, which is reflection on the elements. So the Buddha teaches this next meditation as another way of looking at this body. So in the ones we talked about so far, we've been talking about reflections on this body. So before Anapanasati was reflecting this body that we call the breath. And then we did, then what else did we do? We did Sampajanya, we did Iriapati, we did reflection on repulsiveness. So everything is associated with this body. So now today we're going to be discussing how we look at this body as elements. Now it's important to understand when we say as elements, don't get this confused with like the stuff you learn in science class. We're not talking about elements like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. We're not talking like that. We're talking about the basics of what happens to this body after it deteriorates. So that's what the Buddha defined as, or what he meant, or what he explained as this body being made of the 4 elements. So the Supreme Buddha teaches that another here again, this monk, this person reflects on his own body, however it is placed. Like however this body is placed, however it's positioned. That means no matter what this body is doing, he reflects on this body as, in this body, there are the earth element. So what's the first one? In this body, there are the earth element. There's the water element. There's the fire element, and there's the air element. So this person, he's reflecting on his own body, and he sees that there are only these 4 elements. That's what he reflects on. So then now we have to ask, what does that even mean? What do you mean there's the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element? So the Buddha explains it. I'm going to share screens. Can you guys see my screen? So it's okay if you can't read, I'm going to zoom in. But the Buddha explains his body as consisting of these 4 elements. And then he splits, the Buddha teaches that you can separate these body parts, or what's found in the body, into these 4 various elements. So the reason I said that we reminded everyone to memorize those 32 parts was that the first 20 of those parts are the earth element. But what does it mean that this is the earth element? This doesn't mean that we're made of earth. This means there are things that are solid that are found in our body, like head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, that once we die, what happens to those parts? After we die, what happens? Those parts all go back to the earth. They become soil. They deteriorate right now as your head hairs fall off. You guys ever keep track of what happens to those head hairs after? You guys put a GPS locator on those? No, we don't know. As soon as they fall off our head, they start deteriorating. They start becoming dust. We don't even know that's happening, but that's what happens. That's why when you put a dead body, after a person dies, after you bury that body, what happens after time? That body becomes soil. When you go to dig up the body is decomposed. So the Buddhas taught us that these parts are of a solid nature. So these parts, so if we take head hair, what happens after these head hairs, they start turning gray, then they deteriorate, they fall out, and then they start becoming soil. They start becoming part of the earth. Then in the same way, body hair also does the same thing. Nails, teeth, skin. So these are the exact same things we learned in the last meditation, but now we're considering them as elements. So the first 20, flesh, naharu, bone, bone marrow, kidney, heart, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, and brain. So literally the first 20 of those parts are the earth element. So the earth element again means these are all of a solid nature. These will all one day become soil. These will all one day deteriorate and become earth again. Does that make sense? So that's what it means by when we say we're made up of the earth element. And then the Buddhists taught that there are some things in our body that belong to the water element. That means they have a liquid nature. That means they aren't solid like the earth element. And after we pass away, after this body starts deteriorating, these parts go and mix with the water that's found in nature, that's found in the external environment. So if we take, and these are the last 12 parts of what we discussed last time. So we discussed 32 impure parts. The first 20 are the earth element, and the last 12 are the water element. So 20 plus 12 is 32. That's why it's good to know those 32 parts. It'll help you in the foulness meditation. It'll help you in the elements meditation, and it'll help you later on as well. So what did the Buddha define as being part of the water element? The Buddha taught that bile is part of the water element. Phlegm is part of the water element. Why are those part of the water element? Once we pass away, what happens to bile? It's goes back and joins the external water element. That's what happens. It goes and joins water. No matter if you say, even if you say, I don't want my bile to go join the water, no matter what, your bile is going to end up joining that external water element. So what's found? Bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, skin oil, saliva, mucus, oil in the joints, and urine. So those are the 12 parts. And the Buddha teaches here, if there are anything, so even for the earth element, if there are any other parts found in this body that are of a solid nature, those are all of the earth element. So these 20 plus whatever else is found that is solid in nature, those are all the earth element. And then the Buddha teaches, including these 12, whatever else is found that is of a watery nature, that is of a liquid nature, those are all the water element. Does that make sense? Then the Buddha teaches there's something called the fire element, which is found in this body. So here the Buddha describes 4 main types of heat or types of fire elements found in the body. So the Buddha teaches there's first something called a warming heat. So right now we all have a body temperature. You guys know what that is? What's our body temperature right now? A normal average body temperature? We all have a certain body temperature, okay? And that's maintained. So that's why when someone dies, what happens? How do you know someone's dead? They don't have a breath, and then what happens? Their body starts going cold. You guys know that, right? You heard that? So there's a heat in our body that keeps a regular temperature within this body. So that's called the warming heat, or the temperature regulating heat. Then the Buddha describes there's another heat in our body that causes us to age. So that deterioration of this body, that aging process, the Buddha identifies with the fire element. So when we age, right now as we're sitting, we're constantly aging. We're constantly deteriorating. That is part of that aging heat that's found within the body. Does that make sense? And then the Buddha teaches that there are certain times, for example, like when we get sick, when a bacteria or virus invades our body, then there's a sudden extra heat that arises, which causes us to have a fever. So that's also another type of heat that's found within this body. So there's another fever-causing heat found in this body. And then finally, the Buddha teaches there's, as soon as we eat, as soon as we have food, there's another type of heat that goes and helps us digest the food. So that's called the digestive heat. And that's also found within this body. So there's the warming heat, which regulates our body temperature. There's the heat that causes us to age. There's the fever-causing heat, and then there's the digestive heat. So that's why when, like, after you eat, your body starts warming up. Why? Because there's external, like, blood rushes around your stomach, and there's extra energy put in to digest the food, so your body can absorb it. So that's also a separate heat. And then the Buddha teaches whatever other types of heat there are found in this body that are that have heat, that are fire in nature, then those are all of the fire element. Okay, everyone, does that make sense so far? And then finally, the Buddha describes there is something called the air element found in this body. So here the Buddha describes 6 main types of air. So there's the first one is called upward air, the upward winds or upward air that comes out. Do you guys know what the upward air is? What's the upward air? Vishaka, can you tell me?
Like when we burp?
Yeah, when you burp, when you like when you cough, those are all upward air. And then there's the downward air. That's also, you guys should know that, downward air is when you release flatulence. And then the Buddha teaches there's another type of wind that's found inside the stomach and the bowels. So that's the third type of wind. And then the Buddha teaches there's another type of wind that flows through these limbs. So there's wind flowing through the limbs. And then finally, there's a type of wind, the in-breath, he identifies as another type of breath, and the out-breath as a separate one. So those are the 6. So there's upward, it's very easy to remember, up, down, and then in the stomach, through the limbs, in and out. Make sense? And then the Buddha teaches whatever other types of things that are found that are airy in nature, that have the air, that are associated with the air element, those all belong to that same air element. So whatever is found in this body will either belong to the earth element, the water element, the fire element, or the air element. So it's important to have a good understanding of at least these parts, that these are the parts that are associated with the earth element. So like it's good to, because when we do this meditation, we're going to practice this meditation. But when we practice this meditation, we're going to have to know these parts in order to recollect them, in order to think them. So having them in your memory is important, because otherwise you're going to either have to keep looking back and seeing what the next part is. So these also you're going to have a very good idea. So 4 for the fire element and 6 for the air element. So those of you who didn't practice who didn't memorize the other 32 parts will have another extra 10 parts to memorize. Okay, it doesn't take that long. These are very, very easy to remember. Warming, aging, the fever one, and the digestive. And then for these, the upwards, downwards, in the stomach, and then in the limbs, in and out breath. And these 32, we talked about how you memorize those, where you split them into 5 parts each. So the first group would be head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin. So just first work about memorizing those 5. And then, so after you say those 5, then you go backwards. Skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Then once you have those 5 down, then you go to the next 5. Flesh, naharu, bone marrow, kidney. And then you go backwards. Kidney, bone marrow, bone, naharu, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Then you memorize the 10 up to kidney. And then you go up to the next 5. Like this seems like, how can I memorize all that so quickly? But if you break it down, it's very, very easy to memorize. It should take you maximum 2 days. Like so some decent effort, 2 days, you can memorize this without like any additional stress. Okay? So anyone have any questions up till now? Anyone? Then the Buddha teaches that this earth element, so there's this earth, things that are found that are of the earth element in our bodies, okay? And the Buddha teaches that there's also something called the external earth element. So what happens? This head hair falls off and joins what? The external earth element. It becomes soil found in the earth. Then the Buddha teaches this external earth element has a time when this great earth will one day, the Supreme Buddha teaches, will one day be destroyed. There will come a time when this earth starts losing all the water found on it. So all these rivers, all these lakes, even the great ocean itself starts drying up. It starts drying up, and slowly all the water evaporates until it's just completely earth left. And then this earth starts, because of the increasing temperature, because of these suns that arise, this earth starts heating up and catches on fire. Then finally, at the end of this eon, at the end of this this time period, this earth itself gets completely destroyed. Now, this is found in the discourses, the Buddha teaches. Then the Buddha teaches, if this external earth element, if something so huge that we can't even grasp the concept of how huge this earth is, when we stand here, can we tell how far it is, how far someone else is that's across the world? We don't even have an idea of how far it is. but this external earth element also one day gets destroyed. So one day this external earth element will get destroyed and will become impermanent. Then how can we ever think that this small internal earth element will ever last forever? That is also impermanent. Does that make sense? So we're comparing, so the comparison here is that this external earth element will one day also get destroyed. If that huge, massive, unimaginable earth element also gets destroyed, then how can we ever think that this internal earth element, these body parts, will ever last? So then these body parts themselves, this internal earth element is also impermanent. Do you guys understand the comparison? Because this is how you do this meditation. You compare with that. You guys should understand why it's impermanent. Does that make sense? And then the Buddha teaches, so that's the first compare. You're comparing the internal earth element with the external earth element. Then the Buddha teaches this water element. There are occasions when this water element rises up, gets disturbed, and causes tsunamis. It causes flooding. It causes houses to be swept away. It causes towns to be destroyed. It causes people's lives to be lost. Because this water element becomes such a great force in this world. But there will come a time when this powerful and great water element will also cease to be. Remember I said that there will come a time, the Buddha teaches there comes a time when this great ocean evaporates. So even this great ocean, all the water found on this earth will one day cease to be. It will recede, and all that will be left is just plain ground. So then if this great water element that's found externally, it causes tsunamis and flooding and all kinds of misfortune, will one day become impermanent, then how can you ever think that the internal water element, that these body parts that are found within us, will ever last forever? Those are also impermanent. Does everyone understand that? So we compare it with this great water element that's found externally, and we say that this is also impermanent. Then whatever is found internally, small things that are found internally are also impermanent. Then the Buddha teaches that there is this fire element found within us and also an external fire element. And this external fire element causes towns and cities to burn. It causes huge forests to catch on fire and destroys acres and acres of land. But eventually, this great external fire element also ends up meeting either a body of water, ends up meeting a cliff, ends up meeting a place where there's no grass or things to burn, just flat land, and gets extinguished. Then this great destructive fire element that's found externally also one day becomes impermanent. It ceases to be. Then how can we ever think that these internal fire element that's found within us will ever be permanent? Those internal fire element, that internal fire element is also impermanent. Everyone understand the comparison here? So there's fires that rage that cause towns and cities to burn, but that also becomes impermanent one day. Then the fire within, that's found within ourselves, those fire elements, well, what's there to say about that? Those will also be impermanent. And then finally, the Buddha teaches that just like the internal air element found within our bodies, there's also an external air element. And the comparison here is this external air element gets disturbed, for example, tornadoes, hurricanes, and these powerful air element that's found externally gets disturbed and destroys houses, destroys towns, causes millions and millions of dollars of damage, and destroys everything in its path. But this external air element also one day ceases to be. There are times, and the simile here is in the Buddha teaches, there are times in the hot season where not even a single blade of thatch that's found on rooftops gets disturbed, because that's how still the air is. There's no wind. And then what happens? The day is so hot, what do we have to do? You have to end up turning the fan on. We have to end up creating the air element ourselves just to find some air around us, just to cool ourselves. So then this great air element that destroys things, causes tornadoes and hurricanes, also ceases to be. There comes a time when we wish the wind was blowing. So if that external air element is impermanent, then what is there to say about the internal air element that's found within our bodies? So does that make sense? So we're comparing, this comparison happens with the internal air element and the external air element. And then we should have an understanding of why this external air element is also impermanent. Does everyone understand that? Vishaka, you understand? Sunetra, you understand? Amaya? If you don't understand, you have to tell me, and then I can explain it again. So then the Buddha teaches that here's the simile. So this person is considering his body is just made up of these four elements, right? This body is made up of the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element. And then the Buddha gives a simile. Imagine there's a very, very skilled butcher. Okay? There's a butcher or his apprentice, and he's just killed a cow. This person has killed a cow, and he's sitting at a crossroad with it cut into pieces. So he's killed the cow, and then what's he doing? He's sitting at a crossroad with the pieces separated and just lying there. Now, what does this simile even mean? How do we understand this? Now, before this animal is killed, what do we call this animal? What's this called? What's this picture called? It's called a cow, right? We say this is called a cow. You guys know that, right? And then once this cow has been killed and this butcher is selling the meat, then what do we call this? Do we still call this cow? Do we say this is cow, that's cow, this is cow? No, then what do we say? Then we say meat. Then we say this is the leg meat. This is the thigh meat. So it went from cow associating with that animal to becoming meat. Our perception of that animal changed. But the things that this animal is made of, did that change? This meat is the same meat that's found on the cow. Does that make sense? So this cow, our perception of this cow changed from this is an animal to this being meat. Now when someone buys, let's say he takes this meat away, we don't say, oh, he's buying cow. Did you buy cow today? What's for dinner? Cow. We don't say that. Do we say that? No, we say this is meat. We're serving meat. Did you buy meat? Why? Because our perception has now changed. After you separate that, it went from cow to meat. In the same way, what does this person's perception change from? It's no longer me. It's no longer mine. It's no longer a self. It's just earth element. It's just a water element. It's just fire element. It's just air element. Just like there's no association, no perception anymore of the cow, there's no perception anymore of there's being a me. There's no self there anymore. All he sees is just the four elements. So that's why it says this simile is very, very beautiful. And this simile actually we got to see. We went to the fishing docks, and there's a person who's actually carving a cow, and he had the meat strung up in front of his shop in the same exact way. And then we just watched it for like 10 minutes and then left because we thought he'd yell at us. But you can actually see this when you go to like markets. You'll see people actually having butchered a cow and then they hang up the meat. So then you can actually recollect this. You can actually remember this reflection, which is just like you don't associate any of that meat anymore with that animal. When you practice this meditation, you are able to abandon defilements that arise because you're no longer associating with people. You're not associating with the meat. You're associating with the element. Does that make sense? So there's no more me, mine, them, he, she. It's just 4 elements. So once his perception becomes that, then he considers, just like I am made up of the 4 elements, just like just like I am made up of the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element, so too others are also made up of those same 4 elements. There's no difference. Someone had asked a question. I didn't understand what aging heat means. So the aging heat means there's a heat the Buddha associates with our body that causes us to age. So the reason, like, he separates us aging as a type of heat. So as this moment when we're sitting right now, we're constantly growing older. Our cells are deteriorating, our hair is deteriorating, all those body parts we have are deteriorating. He associates that with an aging heat, something that causes us to age. So that's that factor that causes us to age belongs to the fire element. Does that make sense? That's what it means by aging heat. So as he practices this reflection, he sees within himself, within others, there's only these 4 elements. And as he does this, then he realizes this body has a condition. This body, these 4 elements consist on nutriment. These 4 elements are maintained because of food. If we don't eat food, then these 4 elements can't exist anymore. If we stop eating, what happens? We die. So we start seeing these 4 elements have a nutriment. This form that we think are made up of those same 4 elements. There's a cause and an effect. Once the cause ceases to be, then the effect will cease to be. He starts seeing this reality within himself, and he's able to abandon defilements that he finds within himself. And he lives independent. He's able to abandon craving. Why? Because what does he see when he looks around? He just sees earth element. He just sees water element, fire element, air element. There's nothing to grasp anymore. Those elements are found everywhere. Because those external air elements are also impermanent. When you go to the ocean, no matter how big and vast it is, one day that great ocean will cease to be. Then what's there to say about that bile found within us? What's there to say about the blood found within us? All those parts that are found within us that we grasp, that we say, this is me, that's mine, I like that person, I like this person. It's just those same 4 elements. Then if whatever we find in this world is impermanent, then everything we have within us and around us is also impermanent. And there's nothing to cling on to anymore. Why? He just sees impermanent. He just sees impermanent. He just sees these 4 elements that will one day cease to be. So that's how he contemplates. And does that make sense? That's the end of the meditation. He just reflects on these 4 elements. But you guys should have a very good understanding of the reasons why these 4 elements are impermanent, how you compare them with the external earth elements, the water element, air element, fire element. And then you should have an understanding of why those external ones are also impermanent. Everyone clear on that? Suranga, do you understand? Sunetra, it's clear? So then now what you guys have to do is, now you guys have to memorize those parts. Because how can you do the meditation? You can't do the meditation. Imagine you're doing the meditation and you're like, all right, what's the next part? All right. Body hair. Okay. And then you reflect that, and then, okay, what's the next part? How can you do that? You have to have it in your mind. Otherwise, you won't be able to concentrate. Your mind is just gonna go back to what's the next part? What's the next part? And each time your concentration will break. So I only tell you to memorize something if you actually like definitely have to memorize it. Otherwise, I don't tell anyone to memorize things. It's good, but you have to memorize this. Otherwise, you can't do this meditation easily. You won't be able to get concentration. Okay, so now we're gonna practice doing this meditation a bit. So to do this meditation, so this meditation also doesn't have a specific posture like anapanasati. You can do this in any situation. And I just want to give you guys a reminder that when you guys do these meditations, it doesn't have, you guys can use your real world environment and real world experiences as a reason to do that meditation. For example, last week, someone asked, like, when should we practice doing repulsiveness meditation, thinking about the impurities of the body? And really think about when you guys drive or when you guys go by down a road. Do you guys ever see those washroom installation stores where they have the porcelain commode in that showroom with the tiles, and then it's like covered, it's in glass, and like no one can enter, and then like just take it and leave. It's just in a showroom, it's protected, there's security, there's locks, and this clean, beautiful washrooms, like stuff like faucets and all those things. Now, is there anyone here who enjoys cleaning the washroom? Who thinks, yeah, I want to clean the washroom every single day for the rest of my life? But then look how those things are sold. Those things are put into a showroom, and there's glass, and then they're expensive, and then people like looking at them, they're clean and beautiful. And then we get this idea that I don't want to touch it. How did that change? Why did our perception change to I don't want to touch the toilet? What made it dirty? The toilet wasn't dirty. That toilet was clean. It was in a showroom in a beautiful glass box. It was presented nicely. It's expensive. But then we say, I don't want to touch the toilet. What changed? Who made it dirty? We made it dirty. Everything found within us made that toilet dirty. Does that make sense? No one else, there's nothing else that made that toilet dirty. Only the same things found within us, these same body parts, are what made it dirty. We went from putting on a glass showroom to becoming untouchable. We did that. So even if you pass by a store, if someone who can reflect on the Dhamma can reflect, wow, I'm the one who makes this impure. This body, there's nothing to grasp in this body. In the same way, no matter where this person goes, even if he goes to the ocean, even if he goes to the cemetery, even if he goes wherever he goes, he can find something to reflect on this. He can think, oh, this was impermanent. When you guys pass by, there are sometimes buildings that have disappeared, or these buildings have become new. The landscape has changed. That's a good idea to reflect on that. This land has become impermanent. This great earth element has changed. Then what's there to say about this earth element found within ourselves? So whenever you guys get a chance, whenever you have these external experiences, you guys should use those opportunities to practice this meditation. Meditation is not just sitting down cross-legged thinking something. You can do this walking, you can do this eating, you can do this sitting down, you can do this lying down. Okay, so don't just take it, I can only practice meditation in the 10 minutes that I have set out to practice meditation. Wherever you are, wherever you're going to work, whether you're at school, you can practice this. Even a small moment of reflection will give you a very, it'll help you increase your wisdom. Okay, so don't forget that. So now this meditation doesn't have a specific set of phrases that you say over and over again, like the other meditations that we did. This is just you reflecting on these elements separately, and then comparing it and reflecting on why it's part of the earth element and that why it's impermanent. Okay, so we're going to practice that a bit. So when you guys do this, don't forget there's no guidelines. It's just you reflecting on these and considering these parts within yourself, okay? And because of the time limit, the time constraints, I'm gonna do the first 5 of the earth element and then group the rest of the 15 together and do that as one. And then do the first few of the water element and then group the rest together. And then the other ones I'll do separately. The fire and the, you'll understand if that doesn't make sense. So everyone sit in a comfortable position. Don't lean on anything. Don't lean your head on anything because you're gonna get sleepy. And now close your eyes. And then first prepare your mind to do meditate. First clear your mind. For these next few minutes, there's absolutely nothing you need to think about. You don't need to think about work. You don't need to think about friends or family. Absolutely nothing you need to think about. You just have to clear and empty your mind and relax. And now bring your attention to how your head is placed. So yeah, everyone's eyes should be closed, should be relaxed. And then bring your attention to how your head is placed. If there's any tension or stress around your eyebrows or head, let go of that tension. And then bring mindfulness to how your shoulders are placed. If your shoulders are stiff, relax them and let go of any tension. And then bring awareness to how your feet are placed. Make sure they're in a comfortable position. And then bring your attention to how your hands are placed. Make sure they're sitting on your lap or your knees or in a comfortable position where there's no weight on them. And now be mindful of your entire body. Again, keep your mind calm. Keep your mind empty. Now think, in this body, all the parts found within it are made up of the 4 elements. In this body, there are parts made of the earth element. In this body, there are head hairs. These head hairs found within the body deteriorate. They grow white with age. They fall off this body. Countless are the number of hairs that have fallen off this body. After they've fallen off, I don't even know what happens to them. All of them become soil. All of them become dust. All of them become the earth element. Head hairs are the earth element. Found in this body are body hairs. Body hairs also deteriorate. Body hairs also fall off and become dust. They go back to the soil. Body hairs are also the earth element. Found in this body are nails. Nails also deteriorate. All those nail clippings that I have had in my life, all those pieces have deteriorated and become dust. They've all gone back to this earth. They've all become soil. Nails are of the earth element. Found inside this mouth are teeth. Now, even when I was younger, my baby teeth have fallen out. All those teeth have deteriorated. Even the teeth found within my mouth are deteriorating. As I grow older, these teeth will fall out. These teeth will break. These teeth will turn different colors. These teeth will also one day become dust, will become soil. Teeth are of the earth element. In this body, there is skin. Skin wraps this entire body. Every day, this skin peels off. Many parts of this skin are dead. These dead skin cells all become dust, all go back to soil. Skin is of the earth element. In the same way, inside this body, we find flesh, naharu, bone, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, and brain. All these parts will one day deteriorate and go back to becoming soil. All these parts are of the earth element. Now found externally is this great earth. There will come a time when even this great earth will deteriorate and become destroyed. If this great earth element found externally is impermanent, then all these internal earth elements found within me are also impermanent. This internal earth element is not me, is not mine, is not a self. This internal earth element is impermanent. Also found within this body are parts that are of a liquid nature. In this body, there is bile. This bile will one day also join the external water element. It will soak up into this land after I pass away. Bile is the water element. Found in this body is phlegm. Phlegm will also one day soak up into this earth and join the external water element. Phlegm is also of the water element. Found in this body is pus. This pus found in the body will also join the external water element after I pass away. Pus is of the water element. In the same way, found in this body is blood, is sweat, fat, tears, skin oil, saliva, mucus, oil in the joints, and urine. All these parts found within the body are of a liquid nature. They are all of the water element. Now there comes a time when this external water element, this great water found on the earth, gets disturbed. This great water element causes tsunamis, flooding, causes people to lose their lives, causes towns to be destroyed. But there will come a time when even this great water element will cease to be. All the water on this earth will cease to be. If this great external water element is also impermanent, then this water element found within myself is also impermanent. This water element found within myself is not me, is not mine, is not a self. This water element is impermanent. Now found within this body is a heat. This heat regulates our body temperature. After I pass away, this heat will also join the external fire element. This heat that regulates this body temperature, that warms this body, is of the fire element. Found within this body is a heat that causes me to age. This heat will also join the external fire element once I pass away. This heat that causes this body to age is also of the fire element. Found within this body is a heat that causes fevers. This fever-causing heat will also join the external fire element once I pass away. That heat that causes fevers is also of the fire element. Found within this body is a heat that helps digestion. This digestive heat will also join the external fire element once I pass away. This digestive heat is also of the fire element. Now there comes a time when this external fire element gets disturbed. It causes forest fires. It causes cities to burn down. It causes people to lose their homes. But this great fire element ends up meeting water, ends up meeting a cliff, ends up meeting a plain piece of land, and because of lack of fuel, it gets exhausted, it gets extinguished. It ceases to be. Then this great fire element will also one day cease to be. Then what is there to say about this internal fire element? Then this internal fire element is also impermanent. It is not me. It is not mine. It is not a self. This internal fire element is impermanent. Found within this body are winds that are of an airy nature. There's winds that go upwards, that causes burps. This wind will also join the external air element. Found within this body are winds that go downwards. This causes flatulence. This downward wind is found within the body will also join the external air element. It is part of the air element. Found within this body are winds inside the stomach, inside the bowels. These winds will also join the external air element. These winds found within the bowels and the stomach are of the air element. Found within this body are winds that run through the limbs. These winds will also join the external air element once I pass away. These winds that run through the limbs are of the air element. Found within this body is the in-breath. This in-breath will also join the external air element once I pass away. This in-breath constantly gets joined with the external air element. This internal in-breath is of the air element. Found within this body is the out-breath. This out-breath also joins the external air element. The out-breath is of the air element. Now there comes a time when this external air element gets disturbed. It causes tornadoes. It causes hurricanes. It causes people to lose their homes. But even this great air element, these great winds found externally, also cease to be. There comes a time in the hot season where there are no winds. The entire environment is still. Not even a leaf shakes. There comes a time when we have to use fans to create wind. Then even this great air element found externally is impermanent. Then what about the air element found within ourselves? This internal air element is also impermanent. This internal air element is not me, is not mine, is not a self. This internal air element is impermanent. Then this entire body only consists of the earth element, of the water element, of the fire element, of the air element. In the same way, all the people around me, all the beings in this world are simply made of these same four elements. All these elements are impermanent. All these elements are not me, are not mine, are not a self. All these elements are impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. Okay, you can slowly open your eyes. So that's one way you can do that meditation, where you reflect on each part and then you reflect on the external air element, the external element, and see why it's impermanent, and then can do a comparison. Or you can, if you don't have that much time, you can just do the comparison, like just reflect on your body and reflect that it's made up of these elements. And then you can just think that those are impermanent. Because once you have an idea of why it's impermanent, you can just think that, and now you have that concept down. Does that make sense? So that's how you do that meditation. Does anyone have any questions on that? Any parts that are confusing that they need clarification on? Vishaka, you understood everything? Sunetra, Suranga, Maya. So then Now you guys just have to work on remembering those parts and then practicing. So when you practice this meditation helps you to eliminate all those defilements that arise within us. Once you start seeing people as just 4 elements, once you start seeing all the beings in your life as 4 elements, then your craving for those things get reduced. Then your chance for anger to rise gets reduced. Why? Because what are you getting mad at? 4 elements yelled at me. 4 elements wrote a bad comment about me. 4 element did this to me. I'm going to do this to 4 elements. I'm going to do that to 4 elements. It sounds silly, right? When I say it like that. So when your perception becomes this, then your chance of this anger, of lust, of ignorance, of all these defilements arising gets reduced. Right? Because you're contemplating, you're seeing your perception is different now. Does that make sense? So that's the meditation. That's how you reflect on the elements. So I hope you guys practice this. It's okay if it takes a few days. First, learn those parts. Those will help you in 2 of these very, very important, very, very powerful meditations. You can do these meditations anywhere. You have lots of chances to do these meditations, really, because in your lay life, there are times where you don't have much time. You have to go to work. You have responsibilities. Maybe take your children to school. But using the washroom is something every single person here has to do. No one can say, I don't have time to use the washroom. No matter how busy they are, there's not a single person here who can say, I don't have time to use the washroom. Because no matter what, they have to use the washroom. That means you have a chance to do a meditation with a mental object, with evidence in front of you as to why this body is made of these things. So when you eat, you can do this. When you walk, when you have free time, whenever you have a chance, you should practice some kind of thinking in this way, like some kind of Dhamma practice, some kind of Dhamma reflection. Because this practice now is what will help you when you're completely alone, when you're completely by yourself on your deathbed. If you don't have this practice now, then there's no way that you will ever have this practice. Like very, very unlikely that you will be able to do this kind of reflection when you're suffering, when you're in pain. Someone said, Bhante, when diseases occur, we can reflect this also as impermanent. Yeah, so you can think like these kinds of reflections will help you abandon your lust for this body. Will help you will help you come to an understanding that this body is something conditioned. Why? Because you guys all were there in Corona time, right? And did anyone here think I want coronavirus to come in my body? Did anyone say, yeah, coronavirus, you have an entry ticket inside this body? Come in whenever you like? So then no one here wished to have coronavirus enter their body. But even if you didn't want coronavirus to enter, even if you don't want these illnesses to come within your body, let's say you guys get a cold, you guys want that cold to enter your body? You want that virus to come? No. But even though you don't want that virus to come, that virus still comes. So think how little control we have over this body. Even if you don't want something to enter your body, it'll do that, whether you like it or not. You'll get sick whether you like it or not. You'll lose feeling in this body. You'll lose your ability to control your limbs, whether you like it or not. You can't tell someone who has heart attacks can't say heart don't beat like that. Blood don't get clotted. Blood don't do this. All of those parts are not within our control. So as someone who can only reflect on this will be able to practice this kind of thinking at a time where it's hard to reflect. When you're in pain, it's very, very hard to do a Dhamma reflection. Try that. If you guys get sick, try thinking on the Dhamma. It's very, very difficult. Unless you have some practice at a time when you had a good mental state. Once your mental state declines, it's very, very hard to reflect the Dhamma. Immediately we get overcome by pain. So when you guys are healthy and young and you guys have this free time to do this reflection, practice. It will never go to waste. And when you are in a difficult time, it'll come and help you. Okay? So practice this reflection. That's all I wish. That's all I hope for you. Other than that, I can't force you to practice. So if you practice, it's good for you. If you don't, well then that sucks. But so I wish you luck. If you guys have any questions, you can always ask if there's a part that's unclear. So again, I asked, does anyone have any questions on this? You guys can ask other questions after, but is there anything related to the meditation that you have questions on? Okay, is everyone clear? Chalmara, you have any questions? Okay, then we'll end the program here today. So today we reflected on we learned the Buddha's teachings, we reflected and did a meditation on the elements. In this way, we collected immeasurable merit for our lives. All the merit we collected, we share with all the devas. May all the devas rejoice in this merit and provide righteous protection to all these lay devotees and their families. May all the devas also have the good fortune to escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share all the merit we collected with all these lay devotees' departed relatives. May all these departed relatives rejoice in this merit and have a good life in the next world. May they also be able to escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share all the merit we collected with our teacher, 𝗵𝗺 who taught us the Dhamma in this era, with 𝗵𝗺 with all the monks of Mahamevnawa, all the monks training in the Buddha's dispensation. May all the monks rejoice in this merit and be able to realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share all the merit we collected with all of these lay devotees and their families and loved ones. May all these lay devotees be happy, healthy, and well. May you all have long lifespan. May you all be able to realize the Four Noble Truths and escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Everyone chant with me. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kamame bhante bhuri panya tathagata. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kamame dhamma sanditthika kalika. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kamame sangha punyakhetang anuttara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I will chant a blessing for you all. Abhivadana silissa niccang vaddapachayino chattaro dhamma vaddanti ayuvanno sukham balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti minate samijjatu. May you all be happy, healthy, and well. 𝗪ᵣ saranai, namo buddhaya.
Baba says, Sansa, may we ask forgiveness?
Okay.
Ōkāsa vandāmi bhante, maya katam punyang, samina namoditappang,
Sadhu
samina
anumodate.
katam punyang, marihang dattappang,
Sadhu anumodate.
sadhu sadhu anumodami. Ōkāsa dvarattena katam sappang acchayam kamatame bhante,
Kamami
Ōkāsa
kamitabham.
kamami bhante,
Supatre.
tatyampi ōkāsa kamami bhante, tatyampi ōkāsa kamami bhante.
𝗪ᵏ saranai, namo buddhaya.